B2B startups, change-ups, scale-ups, and grown-ups. This is the B2B Lead Gen Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Schwartzman. Let's do this.
David, welcome to the B2B Lead Gen Podcast.
Hi, Eric. It's great to be here.
Now, you were with TrendKite. Now you're with Cision. Talk to us about that ride.
I can't think of a better thing to call it than a ride, Eric. I joined up with TrendKite about 3 years ago. Just kind of in that mid-late stage startup phase that companies go through. Really just sort of brought in to help build out a demand gen function and start to build out an engine to get us more profitable. Helped take that through, and then surprise, the start of 2019, primary competitor Cision came a calling, and here we are. Currently, I'm running global demand gen for Cision that encompasses both acquisition and customer marketing. I have marketers sitting in each region across Asia Pacific, North America, and EMEA. Also have the marketing operations function, so that's all of our tech stack and plugins, workflows, that sort of thing, making sure everything's working correctly. And then our market development rep team, which is really kind of the engine, the growth engine behind marketing contribution at TrendKite and now at Cision. So the market development reps follow up on all of the inbounds or leads that we drive and qualify them for opportunities.
How did you get started in demand generation?
Well, lead gen, going back to the beginning, I don't know, 20 some odd years ago, has always been sort of part of my skill set. And I'm going to date myself a little bit here. Going back to the time where it was about the advertising that you did, and I remember. My start out at Silicon Laboratories, this is all mid-late 90s, where, run advertising, run various ads, and then I would physically tear out the green forms, the lead forms that would come back to the office, and I'd walk over to the sales floor in a round robin fashion and say, okay, who wants leads? And that's where I kind of started. I've seen that evolve over time. Kind of seeing the science sort of take hold of it as a result of the technology that's supported to demand marketers now. Kind of moving through, doing different types of marketing over time. I've done event marketing, I've done digital marketing, email marketing, and then ultimately demand gen kind of being coined as a phrase here in the last 10, 15 years. My role has kind of turned into that, to the sort of doing the all-in-one, and just sort of the natural evolution of that, leading the demand gen team in all facets. So,
what kind of growth did you see at TrendKite from when you started to the acquisition?
Love telling this story, Eric. When I came on to TrendKite, it was about new business. Right, company was just in that stage. The velocity that we needed to grow, the quality of the marketing team that we had employed, getting them contributing to that new business number at a higher click, it just wasn't there. So typical problem I think a lot of marketing organizations run into, where generating a ton of leads, bringing in a ton of leads into the organization, tossing them over the fence to sales, and watching them fall by the wayside. Right, we see that a lot as demand marketers. Quickly I deduced, given the volume of it and given the time that the salespeople were not doing going into with the leads, I needed to do a couple of things. First place I started was the categorization of our leads. It's the first thing I did, and I like to keep things simple, Eric, as simple as possible. And I broke our leads out into two. You got tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is anybody that comes to our website, clicks demo request, and those are tier 1. When people hit demo requests on anybody's site, that's the priority. There's a lot of names for them: hot leads, qualified leads, urgent leads. I've heard them called a million different things, but those are the people shopping. It's very evident to folks when they're hitting a demo request button, they're going to get a phone call from somebody. They're going to be followed up on. So I wanted to take care of those first. Second is the tier 2, and that's everything else. Those are people that come in off of content downloads, webinars, events, chat, all other things. So it's everything else. So I kept it really simple. The next thing that I did was take the weight off a salesperson. And this is very important here, and a model that I believe in and I've implemented in several organizations. And that is the implementation of a market development rep team, right? This is the intermediary between sales and marketing. This is the team that actually qualifies the inbounds, qualifies what comes in, and sets the demonstration or opportunity for sales. So they're doing the legwork for sales. And I wanted to provide that service. I needed to first, like I said at the start of the conversation, I needed to create value and contribution from marketing. And the way I was going to do that was implement a team or have a team in place that was going to do that valuing for us. So we set up that process. So when an inbound comes in, it gets scored, distributed in a round-robin fashion to that inbound team, that market development rep team. They immediately follow up on them, qualify, they get all relevant information, points of contact, budget information if they can, what they want to see on that demonstration, and they actually set up the calendar invite. They set up the demonstration, all the customization, everything for the salesperson. They even follow up with the salesperson the day of to make sure that they're going to be on the demo and they're ready for it. They set that up. So anyway, we started that at TrendKite. And then we started to set SLAs around it where we started to see performance. The tier 1 and tier 2 I mentioned before, tier 1 leads that come in, demo requests, we set a 5-minute SLA. A 5-minute SLA for that rep to start outreach to that lead. Why 5 minutes? Because chances are if somebody's coming in and hitting demo requests, filling out a form, they're going to go to our competitor and do the same because they're shopping, right? This is a qualified person. They're doing some shopping. So 5-minute SLA to begin follow-up. Fast forward over the course of the 2 years that I've been here at TrendKite, tier 1 demo requests were qualified at 42% before I got here. Right before acquisition of Cision, 87% to opportunity, conversion to opportunity. So that's a pretty big lift for tier 1. Tier 2 inbound that come in. This is everything.
I want to make sure I understand these numbers.
Yeah.
You're saying 42% of leads qualify.
The tier one leads that came in, people hitting demo requests on our site.
42% of them qualified for a demo.
Correct.
And then the second number was what?
87%. That's what we improved it to right before our acquisition.
Got it. Okay. So, lead to opportunity lifts from 42 to 87%.
Yep.
Got it.
The second thing we did, the tier 2s that I talked about, this is everything else that we do as a marketing organization, right? Content that we put out in space, all of our paid spends, events, webinars, anything that we do outside of anybody hitting that demo request button, we set an SLA around that. We created an inbound process for those to come in, to get scored, to get routed to the market development rep team. They've got a 24-hour SLA to follow up, right? We raised that from an abysmal 3% conversion to opportunity, right, to 23% conversion to opportunity right before acquisition. And these are understandably lower level, but you see the improvements there. These are process improvements we made for our campaign activity.
Got it. And then what about further down the funnel? Like, can you talk about conversion?
Absolutely. Our newfound metric, once we started doing this process, the other thing that we did too, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this before. I got the organization, you heard me say inbound a few times versus lead, and I do say lead because it's just force of habit. But we got off a lead-based model, meaning we got off just passing off a name to a rep, right? we do an account-based distribution, right? So when somebody inbounds, they're going to be distributed to those market development reps as an account. So this is really kind of our approach to account-based marketing in that you're getting an account view. And so that's a little bit of work under the hood, though. But when something is distributed in Salesforce, they get the account view. So they see the entire account history, other points of contact, and so forth. So you're marketing to the accounts, not just the individual. So that's another.
And is your team populating the account with the contacts, or with the prospects or leads rather?
If need be, we try to gather as much of that up front as we can, either through the forms or through historical data, what have you. But we do actually put it in the hands of the market development reps to do the prospecting if they need to. So they'll use other tools such as the Zoom Infos of the world, LinkedIn Navigator. They'll use other tools to populate the account if need be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you have any sort of best practices around how many contacts to go after, and seniority versus operational management versus operational? Any sort of rules of thumb there? You got to have a scoring model first and foremost. You have to have an idea of who has a propensity to convert, either on the account, and I'll say both in the lead and the account model, right? Because a lot of companies are on that lead model. If you don't have an account score, whether if it's by title, company size, size by employees or size by revenue, it makes it really hard to prioritize. So we do have a scoring model that's in place, and that's what we typically leverage, because we know kind of the scoring threshold of where people have a propensity to convert to an opportunity or demo, versus just talking to and calling on everybody. And I would say secondly there, it also depends on the campaign you're running, right? I can't say this enough. One of the things we do, the way we structure our campaigns, is we have what's called air cover, right? And this is the campaigning. This is the one-to-many approach, where, a very general thought leadership webinar, maybe a tactic for attacking the one-to-many, a blog post around that webinar, maybe a tactic for one-to-many. But then to structure it down to the one-to-few, this could be very industry or segment-based campaigning. That's where we've seen a lot of success. Is like, how are we going to speak the language of of the banking, finance, and insurance industry? How are we going to speak the language of healthcare? How are we going to speak the language of nonprofits, high tech, that sort of thing, travel and tourism? How are we going to talk to all of these different segments, talk to the PR and communications professional, because that's our target market, right? How are we going to talk to them and get them to convert to the opportunity? And then finally, there's the one-to-one, which is how we attack enterprise. And we do this a lot now at Cision with a much larger customer base. Typically, we've landed in a lot of these accounts, but now we're trying to expand. So this is where cross-sell, upsell comes into play. So doing very targeted accounts, more one-to-one. It's like if we took somebody like a Microsoft or a Google or a Facebook or, any of these like large enterprise organizations, and you have, where your addressable market within that organization, let's say, of the 100% penetration you could have, you've only got 10. How do we start chipping away at the remaining 90, right? So we create content experiences, for those customers. We do targeted events. We do targeted emails, very personalized and very to that, targeted at that particular organization. And that's what we call more of the one-to-one campaign. So that'd be some of my advice that I give to folks in terms of best practices. Are you pretty bullish on personalization? You think that there's a lot of room for growth there, that's effective? What are your feelings on personalization?
It depends. Bullish is a good word to do it at a high level. Again, I like to tear things out if you're not picking up on a theme here. But at the very least, if you're going to send somebody an email, if you're going to target somebody specifically, you at least ought to try to at least call them by name and sign your name to it, right? Those are things that I look out to. I'm a buyer of software. I receive a lot of solicitations. I get a lot of folks hit me up in a very account-based marketing approach.
I like some level of personalization at the cold touch. But then if I've met you at an event, if I've talked to you, kind of ongoing, and we practice this here, then we start to personalize the message a little more. Hey, it was great to see you and have talk about your dog, or great to see you and talk about whatever your favorite sport, that sort of thing, right? You start to warm it up. Next, which I'm just to kind of speak to the masses here, it just really depends on where the relationship lies. Folks they'll kind of scrape your data, your footprint, your digital footprint, and they kind of use that. That really just depends. I would say more that one-to-one approach I talked about before. I see that being a little bit more beneficial. We use that here where we're talking to a particular client, and that's where things like gifting comes into play and so forth. Too often times somebody will send me albums based off music I've tweeted about, or they'll send me sports figurines based off sports that I like, or people will send me, Yeti tumblers. They'll send me all kinds of things like that just to try to get a demo. Not a big fan. I would actually tell folks to kind of steer away from that. I think you're wasting your money. So.
What about ideal customer profiles and personas? Do you use them, and if so, how?
Kind of back to what I was saying about segment-based approaches. We have data, after really aggregating 2 years of data and then assimilating that in Cision now, we know where our sweet spots are. So we can actually go into next year really excited for 2020 because it really helped us to kind of shape our demand gen calendar going into next year. So we know the seasonality of things when it comes to things like the high-tech sector. We know the seasonality of things and what plays well for like the retail sector, travel and tourism, right? There's different, there's inflection points in a given year where our addressable market has propensity to convert, where they'll raise their hands, right? I'll go to retail there for a minute. We know we like to kick off our retail campaigning in late May, early June. Why? Because PR and comms professionals want to get a jump on things that are coming up in the retail season. Because after September, you're not going to get a hold of them, right? They're too busy in the retail industry. They're in the thick of things, and they won't talk to you until January, February. So you got that small window of when to talk to them. Travel and tourism, kind of the same thing. Knowing when the summer and travel months are globally, and start positioning yourselves in front of busy travel seasons, right? High tech. It's looking at sort of the landscape of things. Right now, we've got a big push going right now, a lot of campaigns running because you got the big CES conference upcoming in January, right? You got a lot of companies making announcements. And if you're talking to PR and communications professional, they're going to want to know how their the value of their earned media. They're going to want to know how their news is being perceived and how it's registering in the marketplace. So it's a little way we use our target industry campaign.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen around demand generation in the years that you've been in the business?
Biggest changes, it's technology. That might sound a little boring, but the sophistication behind the technology overall right now, kind of the big thing that I'm seeing when I walk some show floors, the way I get marketed to is this idea around intent data, right? What is this buyer going to do? We've got a solution for you. We can tell you exactly what they're doing on your website, and we can help increase the quality, the volume, and specifically what people are doing on your site, so you can go out and, in our case, set a demo, right? My overall take on it is it's good. We have partaken in a couple of these different technologies. I haven't seen them take off yet to where I can kind of just solidly get behind one of them. But kind of a little bit of a pivot from that is AI and some of the artificial intelligence features that you can leverage in existing technologies. Example there, we're big customers of Uberflip. And one of the things I really like that is they create they're not just a content repository. They are that. It's a great place to start from, but they can actually create a let's just say, it's almost a streaming service environment, making your content somewhat episodic in nature, right? So you can actually make recommendations. If somebody comes to your content site, a little pop-up will show up in the windows like, oh, you're enjoying this blog post, you might like this ebook. If you like this ebook, you might want to register for this webinar. And then you can follow those folks kind of in their internet journey and position that, that same bit of content to bring them back to the site. And then as an extension of that, then you have technology like Drift, for instance, for big Drift customers. Drift does very much the same thing. While it's a chat feature, first and foremost on our site, one of the things I really like about it is I don't have to have a human on chat all the time. There is actually a very sophisticated bot feature that will not only take a demo request from somebody in off hours, but they'll also position relevant content. So if that person isn't ready to buy or have a conversation, we can at least lead them with a relevant piece of content. And they can take that content, or we can see their interest in that content and position more through the AI feature out of Uberflip. So AI is another one that I see as a trend making an impact.
Are you using a sales enablement platform or a digital asset management tool to help reps nurture and convert?
We are a couple of different tools in their bag. I mentioned before the prospecting tools. One of the things we use in their outreach enablement, well, actually two different tools, but in their general outreach, they use a tool called Outreach, I should say, which we really like. Outreach does a lot of the manual work behind the outreach to inbounds that come in. I'll go back to those tier 2 inbounds that we have. We have such a large quantity, especially with a company like Cision. We get massive amounts of inbounds that come in. This allows, as they get round robin and distributed to the market development reps, gives them an opportunity. It gets loaded into Outreach. They have pre-built sequences that they can tailor as they see fit, right? So they can actually send a customized message. And, really within minutes, they can actually get a communication out to a group of similar audiences, a fairly large group. They can get that loaded up and sent out and get their cadences started. So they can, they're fishing at that point, right? They're trying to get some bite space off a few folks, and they can kind of start there. And then enablement overall, we do use Guru as a sales enablement platform, really, where they can go in. They can look up, relevant product marketing content, based off product questions. They can get their battle cards. I mentioned products, battle cards. They can look at ungated content that we're promoting out there, news releases, different things that we have out there to help them do their job better. They use Guru as a quick search. And all of this is plugged into, I should say this, the tool is plugged in through Slack. We're a big Slack organization, so they can actually do a quick search there and get the tools they need to do their job better.
If you had a magic wand and you could wave a magic wand over everything you're doing and improve something, what would you improve?
Oh, man, let me pick one there. I'm always big on the health of my database. I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied or if one wave of the wand would do it, but I'm always looking at the engagement of the database, the health of it, engaged versus not engaged. And, I don't know what world that looks in, but it would be amazing to have like a 95% engaged database. So when you send something out, you're talking to a higher number of people that will respond to you.
Do you also give the sales team what they need to close, or is that, are you just pretty much on the enablement side, and then once say a lead is working, it's with sales, and then they are using Outreach and their own tools, or are they're using this Guru tool as well to download decks and personalize pitch materials and that type of thing?
The sales team is using the same tools as the market development rep. They use Outreach in their sequencing and their messages. We are a Salesforce.com shop. They use LinkedIn Navigator to look up if another point of contact comes aboard. They use the same tools. They use Guru for their enablement. But when you're talking about somebody that's actually physically training them and enabling them kind of through it, we do have product marketing. We have a lead for that. So the global leader in product marketing, he and I are, really sort of joined at the hip in terms of, messaging, product announcements, product updates, and so forth, things that are coming out of that, out of their team. My team and his team are very, very joined up and partnered to make sure that we're not sending mixed messages to the sales floor. Yeah.
When you guys were acquired by Cision, did you announce your customer count at that point? What sort of metrics did you release to the street about the size of TrendKite when it was acquired?
We didn't. Well, I mean, where TrendKite was as a business, that was, that news was released. We had just crossed the 30 million ARR mark, so a pretty healthy out for TrendKite, at least where it was, or at least the number of employees and so forth. All that information was made available. But then to our customers, the communication.
30 million annual recurring revenue.
Correct. Annual recurring revenue.
Got it. And then you were going to say something else, so I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I heard in you there. You said you mentioned something about our communication to our customers. Communication with customers was obviously you're not losing anything. In fact, you're going to have the opportunity to get a whole lot more. Because Cision was our TrendKite is a media monitoring organization. So the value of your earned media, measuring the impact of your programs, your campaigns, getting real-time data on that. But now you get a whole lot more with Cision. See, with the communications cloud, social listening, distribution, influencer database. You're going to get a whole lot more now as we go forward. So that's kind of the.
And so it's a vertically integrated, communicator stack of tools, right? You've got the database, you've got the monitoring, you've got the analytics, you've got the engagement. And then I guess TrendKite is the analytics piece, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we took at warp speed, we took the media monitoring arm out of Cision and plugged the TrendKite one in. That was the attraction, right? That was the reason for the acquisition.
So what happened? Wasn't there another acquisition? Gorkana, I remember, was acquired.
Gorkana was acquired. Yeah, that was a ways back. Mostly integrated. Some of the My Gorkana brand is still around because it's more just a brand type thing. But back to the TrendKite, that was the emphasis there was speed to integration, right? That was one of the things. We didn't want to just be another. Cision has grown through acquisition over time, and we wanted to make this more of a seamless acquisition. We didn't want TrendKite to necessarily just sort of stammer on for years on end. We wanted to make that assimilation very quickly. So
TrendKite then is analytics and media monitoring.
Correct.
So let's have a discussion about media monitoring.
Okay.
So I've got to think AI is going to replace Boolean queries in media monitoring. Yes.
I can't speak to exactly what's on the roadmap, but I mentioned AI before, sort of in the marketing space. I mean,
but it has. So I guess you've answered
seems to be the way.
It has not replaced it yet.
Seems to be the way for the future.
It's still Boolean at this point. But it's still Boolean at this point.
Okay. Correct.
And talk to us a little bit about the solution. I mean, obviously, media monitoring is a crowded space. What makes TrendKite different?
Well, the difference, and I remember our conversation, Eric, a little bit at the PRSA conference here recently, is Cision, TrendKite now Cision. We will always continue to push our message, the value of our product, the value of our technology as part of the PR and communicators tech stack. We will always do that. we are a part of that, right? For however we're using it. So if you're measuring the value of your campaigns that you're pushing out there, the inflection points or, dips in social, dips in, or value back to your website, the analytics behind if you put a press release out there, what kind of earned are you getting right back to your site? If you need to look up a particular journalist or try to make a pitch to a particular journalist, if you need to get a news release out on the wire, we have that. We have that for you. We will continue to push that to PR and communications professionals. What I'm excited about, and I alluded to this in the early part of the discussion when I started talking about the science and technology of marketers. And I've done this. We've been through a few marketing conferences in the last year at Cision. And one of the things I'm starting to see in the eyes of like chief marketing officers is when you start talking to them about the impact of their campaigns, right? Their integrated campaigns that their teams are launching, whatever they're talking about, whatever they're launching, whatever they're doing. If you position it, if I'm picturing here and picture with me here a boardroom table, and the CMO or project leader, what have you, is you're announcing a campaign. This is what we're going to talk about, team. And down the row you have product marketing, you have demand gen, you had advertising, you got your web person, you got your email person or database person, your ops person, events person, right? Everybody has a little stake in the game, right? And the PR person, no different. They have a stake in the game. But what I've seen, and when you position it this way, is, a lot of times towards the end of the project, towards the end of the planning before deployment, it's, hey, PR person, can you get us a press release? Here's all the messaging and everything. Get us a press release. Let's get it out on the wire. Right? That mindset can absolutely change with the Cision platform. And one of the things I've been doing in positioning this in front of CMOs to, think about it from that standpoint. With Cision, if you're launching something or you're campaigning on something that maybe one of your competitors has done something similar on, you can actually look into that product. You can look at the media monitoring arm and see how did it do? You can see what channels it played well on. You can see what influencers or journalists picked it up. You can see what, you can kind of handpick what journalists, or influencers you want to reach out to. You can optimize your wire service, right? You can do all of these things now in a tool that maybe just didn't get our platform that didn't get the popularity, let's say as little as 5 to 10 years ago. The technology has caught up now to where the PR person can become a very vital part in that deployment, because now they have technology to kind of help steer the ship. They can almost steer the ship there, like, maybe guys, we want to stay away from this message, or maybe we want to, double down here. Maybe we want this to be purely social. Maybe we need to bring the digital marketer in here and optimize the keywords in here because we see how XYZ company failed at this last year. These are the different levels of insights that can be afforded to you. And so when you start positioning it that way to a CMO, and they can start to see ROI and justify spend in that, that's where the head nods happen and the eyebrows start to raise. And they're like, oh man, didn't know you could do all that. So that's where I see some of this changing. So
when you think about the types of metrics that are going to get a CMO excited, can you get away from vanity metrics and to bottom funnel revenue impact numbers? Is there a way to sort of bring those in? And I mean, it's so tough, with PR. It's so impervious to those type of metrics, because how do you really know? I mean, you can't really draw a straight line between like an article in a newspaper or even on a website to sales or leads or conversions. So I mean, how do you get when you wind up in the boardroom with the CMO that really does want to understand what the value of PR is? How do you deal with that? And if you can't really answer their question now, can you sort of see down the tunnel, like how technology may be able to answer that question in the future?
If I can walk them through And I would say, number one, a CMO that's consumed with vanity metrics, they're not going to be CMO for very long, especially in this day and age. The vanity metrics to me are a bit of, you put those in a holding tank, likes, shares, that sort of thing. But there's value you can derive from some of that. Let's just kind of think, I'm a marketer, I think in terms of funnels a lot of times. So, if I'm thinking about the top of funnel where inquiries are made, right, you've put some news out there, and you put it out there. Let's say you've done this right. You put news out there across a variety of different mediums. You have a press release, a couple of blog posts, you have, a couple of articles that you've placed, some journalists that you've gotten in touch with. You're doing the social media thing, right? You put those out there, and you start to tag them. You tag them appropriately, right? You always want to tag them. And something that a PR person should always say, I should say this before I say that, is always, no matter what you're doing, be very aligned with your company's KPIs or your marketing team's KPIs. Something I'm a firm believer in also is the PR person be very close to the digital marketer in the room, knowing certain, like, what keywords to use, what's resonating with certain folks, right? So before they even deploy those campaigns, they're already going to see some results, right? They're going to see some results if they put these together, right? So I wanted to make sure to mention that. So back to kind of funnel, you've put this stuff out there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
We're talking
put
about
out social media. You put it with, sorry, I just thought my brain stopped.
We're talking about how to how to figure out what PR's impact is on the bottom line.
Right. So thinking about the bottom line and thinking about the the value of earned, kind of through it all, the impact that returns. Yeah, the impact returns back on that. It's exactly where I was going with. The impact that comes back, you can start to measure your reputation immediately. And that's a good way to describe it. You start to measure the impact of reputation. And you can do that through some of those vanity metrics. You can see who's sharing, who's liking, who's retweeting. You can take that and compartmentalize it so you can start to get an idea of what they're coming back to. Now there's two parallel tracks running. You have the journalists maybe that you want to be picking up and retweeting your story so you can kind of get an accurate count on there, right? If tagged appropriately, again, this is partnering with your digital marketer, now getting to more of the middle part of the funnel, you're able to measure, are they coming back to your site, right? Are they coming back to your site through the links that you put out there? Are they coming back to your site through the backlinks that you put out there, right? How are they coming back to your site? And are you able to track them appropriately, right? So there's that. Once they're tracked and once you start marketing to them, now this is the other parallel track. If they're not a journalist, if they're not somebody that you rely on maybe for the thought leadership or getting the message or the word out there, hopefully they're a potential buyer. So tagged appropriately, then you've brought them into your experience. You're controlling the narrative, bringing them to an experience, download content, take a demonstration, learn more about your company. Once they come into there, if the digital marketer has set things up right, if your marketing team has set things up correctly, that's easy to tag at that point, right? So now you're measuring the impact of it. Now you're actually getting to ROI. And done correctly, it sounds very, a lot for, PR and comms professionals, but once you've done that correctly, then you can do one of two things. You can measure the impact of those vanity metrics and the impact back to your site. And then you have another arm, again, tagged appropriately. You can see who's actually coming in and like, wow, we got a demo request, directly from this link or this article that we put out there. It's kind of cool.
Just to give folks who aren't in PR or media, some sort of sense of what the size of the sale is, can you give me like a range of annual lifetime value of a customer, or total lifetime value of a customer, a range, or annual value, a range? What's the size of a sale?
It can be, we deal with small, medium, enterprise business at Cision. Trendkite, the bulk of the business was in the small to medium business range. You're dealing with a $20,000 to $30,000 ACV, average contract value year over year. Not too far off with Cision in that same space, but you have the small to medium business in that similar range, and then of course enterprise can be, sort of sky's the limit.
And then what's the sales cycle on that? How long does it take?
Mid-market, what I've seen, and I've seen this very similar in other organizations as well, for a typical platform, moderately, depends on what the capability is. But usually with a small to medium business, that we see anywhere from a 45 to 60 day sales cycle. And that's from inbound to close. So.
And so, from your view as a demand gen person, what do you want to know? Like, what information attracts you? What sort of a webinar are you going to attend? You want to know more about what?
It's always about where the stage you are in your career and what you're on the hook for. Me personally, I am running a global team. So I am I'm consuming content now on running a global demand gen team across the areas that I mentioned before. Demand gen. So what works here in the U.S. may not work in Canada, may not work in Sweden. Operations, the way we have our operational team set up here, our technology stack and so forth, does that translate to the United Kingdom? Or do we need to get other software or other functions for that role? And then more importantly, the market development role, which I'm actually scaling here at Cision, is the tactics and the way they go about things, the way they're comped, the way that they outreach. Does that translate? Does that work in other regions? So that's where I'm consuming content and best practices sort of globally for running a demand gen team.
Any interesting sort of quirky tidbits you can share, anecdotal, stories about how markets are different? Anything interesting?
Anything interesting?
Any peculiar?
I can tell you something
about Zimbabwe. Do they buy differently?
Oh man,
Mozambique?
I would say the one that sort of gets me is events. This may not sound quirky, but it's just sort of the angle.
Special events?
What I'm observing. Special events meaning like there's something about the way Europeans market at events versus what we do in the U.S., right? In the U.S., we go to these massive industry events, these trade shows and what have you, and we network, right? A lot of times you're not going to sell something at the event, but you use it as a step in the buying process. What I've seen in, other countries, again, Sweden, Finland, the Nordics, Germany and such is, man, they go to an event and they work and they sell stuff. Phone call outreach, cute emails, things like that don't work over there. Not sure why. It's just the personality. They want to meet face to face, so it's a much different dynamic. So is that quirky? I don't know. That's just something that I picked up on.
That's Meltwater country, right? I mean, they're from there. Weren't they from over there? Where are they from?
A little bit. They got a pretty strong presence there. But
isn't it like the founder Finnish or something? Or
maybe he might be. So.
I have his book here. I haven't read it yet. I'll tell you. The guy's name is Ligason. That definitely sounds like a Nordic name. It's not in the blurb here where he's from, but I thought it was from over there. And what you're seeing is in those countries, they're aggressive at the shows. I mean, they'll step right up and they'll pull out a contract and sign the deal right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair characterization? Or do I understand you right?
I think so. Yeah.
What about Europe? What about Western Europe?
Very much the same. There's just the people. It's the people dynamic, right? There's just something about the face-to-face interaction versus the digital. And what's even funnier, something else here's some quirky. I'm glad you asked that question. Something a little bit quirky is my team in Europe and across all of Europe and in Canada, by the way, demand gen doesn't translate. The function of demand gen, like by name, I should say, the function exists, but the name demand gen, and they don't want to be called demand gen marketers. They want to be digital marketers. Digital marketing is what translates. Versus the United States, where demand gen means something, you want to be called that, and digital is a subset of demand gen. Digital is like your paid, your paid search and so forth. So you have these digital marketing managers or paid marketing managers. So that's a little.
But they see the moniker demand gen as somewhat offensive in Western Europe.
I just don't think it just doesn't make, not offensive, just doesn't take. Or just hasn't taken yet. That's one thing I've noticed, because I tried to unify all the titles, and they weren't having it. So,
one of the things I've noticed, having gone to a lot of different conferences, and also gone to conferences abroad, there was this one conference that was happening in Paris for a while called Le Web. Did you ever go to Le Web or hear about it?
I haven't.
So Le Web was where Waze showed up first, and it was where Uber was founded. Airbnb came out of Le Web, and the interesting thing about Le Web was, when you go to like a U.S. conference, pretty much every square foot of the trade show floor is paid for by somebody, and if the space has not been paid for, it's not furnished. And so really the only place to mingle is in a booth or in an aisle. And what was different about Le Web is they actually built this central sort of coffee bar that was free and had like tables and chairs and couches all around it. And then the booths were all around that. Mm-hmm. And because they had that, that sort of common area, that public space where you could rub up against somebody without really being sold because you were in their booth, the humanity at that conference was off the hook. And you wound up meeting people like that you typically would never meet just because of the hierarchy of, one guy being on stage, being mobbed afterwards and then leaving if everyone wanted to meet him. At Le Web, that guy grabs a cup of coffee and winds up meeting everybody just because there is a common area to do that. And if you think about kind of common areas, public spaces in this country, we're not really as advanced as they are in Europe with public spaces. They kind of understand how to do it a little better than parks and areas where people gather and congregate, probably just because they're more mature and there's less space and they've been around longer. But that was kind of my big aha moment with the difference between trade shows in Europe and I wasn't selling, so I really wouldn't have had the insight into whether or not it was a harder sell there or here. The only other show I've seen here that kind of gets a little bit of that common area vibe going is South by Southwest.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that, which we participate in as well. Actually, I've been going to that.
I mean, are you from Austin?
Years. I am. I'm in Austin now.
So, are you from there, born and raised?
I was military brat before that, but been here off and on for 32, 33 years.
So you probably grew up at South by Southwest.
Yes. I saw it when it was.
You've seen that, yeah.
Did
you volunteer when you were a kid?
And I never volunteered, but man, I mean, used to get into a lot better concerts free back then. I tell you, it was nice.
Yeah.
But then I saw the introduction of the interactive festival, more the business side of it, where tech companies started to come in. So that was a change that I saw go over time. So
I did, it'll be in the book, I did an interview with, what's his name, the Chief Content Officer for Interactive South by Southwest.
I'm not sure who that is.
Okay. Well, he's one of these interviews as well. And what's your favorite barbecue in Austin?
Favorite barbecue, Salt Lake.
Salt Lake. Okay. You're not a Franklin guy, huh?
No, not. It's. Hey, you know what? He's got a good model. I've met the man. Good stuff. But it's just an advice. Not worth waiting 2 hours for.
Well, you know what happened? So I didn't know about it. I touched down at 2 p.m., got my rental car, pulled up Yelp, and it came up as number one. Showed up there around 2:45, 2:50. There was no line anymore, and there was a sign on the door that said sold out, piece of paper taped to the door. I went in anyways, and I got in line, and I got the last order of brisket.
Oh, really?
It was amazing, yeah. And then, I put a picture on Instagram, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, how did you get in?" And I didn't even know. I just got lucky. But I think that if you're alone and you show up at 2:45 and just ignore the sold out sign, that's the way to go there.
I'll tell you another secret. Get with a group and buy a whole brisket, and you just walk up and you take it with you. You got to go cut it up and stuff yourself, but that's another way to go.
Do you know this company that does these things, Master Class? Have you heard of that company?
I guess not, no.
So they market these classes, taught by the best of the best. Steve Martin teaches comedy. Malcolm Gladwell teaches writing. And they have one now, the guy from Franklin teaches barbecue. And my neighbor and I watched it, and we made a barbecue. And let me tell you, man, it was every bit as good. It's not really that hard if you just follow, his recipe.
Thanks for listening. This is Eric Schwartzman for the B2B Lead Gen Podcast. See you next time.